Hello and welcome. My name is Tina Elkowich, and I am here this evening with my friend and co-host Ken Close. And together we are going to take you through a presentation of Healy's newest program, The Power of Three. Before we begin, if you would kindly read through the disclaimer that's here at the bottom of the screen, we would greatly appreciate it. And then from there, we will jump in and look at the Power of Three and everything it has to offer us. And if you can't read as fast as how I'm moving along, it's recorded so you can come back and take a look at that. So the Power of Three. The Power of Three itself was created and designed to help us move through times of unrest. We experience that on an internal level as well, externally in our environments, in us and all around us. And so right now, if we look at the world overall, there's a lot of division, there's a lot of polarity, there's a lot of controversy and chaos that's happening in the field. And if we take it from that global level and we bring it closer to home, if we bring it from that macro perspective to that micro, from the world itself to our country, to our society, our community, and then how it affects us as an individual as we're journeying through life. These programs that Healy has created are amazing in that they allow us an opportunity to navigate those times and to bring ourselves back into balance, back into harmony when we feel off kilter with all the things that are going on around us on all levels. So for me personally, as I've been working with these programs, I've just been very humbled, and I feel it's hard actually to put it in words, but I can feel this, what is happening for me as an individual, but to think of moving through this collectively community setting and what that is creating, and how it's impacting the world, how it is rippling out from that micro perspective of just me and how that ripples out into the world and in a community as a collective has just been very humbling is the only word I can come to right now. So as a collective has just been very humbling is the only word I can come to right now. So yeah.
You know, one of the things, and thank you, Tina, for expanding on that, because as we come down in awareness, as we go from that open, broad, divergent type of focus down to a narrow, pinpointed, convergent focus, we narrow the field of observation. We narrow the field all the way down to the body itself. And in the end, it is the body in which we are navigating all of those other exterior circles. And in the body itself does not know the difference between something that it experiences in that three-dimensional tapestry or something that's made up in the mind itself. The body doesn't know the difference. It just responds in kind to that energetic expression. And so the Power of Three gives us three very distinct areas in which we can build balance, in which we can build harmony, alignment. And so bringing it all the way down and in to the body, mind, and soul. And that's where we're at and what we're diving into.
Thank you. So the Power of Three. So this is what it looks like. These are the three program groups that are housed within it. And then you can see within that, we have another subset of programs, individual programs that are a part of each one. So the first one is bioenergetic rebalance. And then we have universal frequencies. And then we have digital Ayurveda. And then within them, they have individual programs that are part of that grouping. So with bioenergetic rebalance, we have conflict balance, defense support, and friendly flora. We will be talking about these more in depthly as we move through the presentation, but I always think it's nice to orientate yourself and kind of see it at a glance. And then we have the universal frequencies that have the classical physical, classical energetic, and the Zapper protocol, and the digital Ayurveda. which has the doshas, Kapha, Pitta, and Vata.
But if we look at again, I mentioned the body, mind, and spirit, we're kind of seeing some correlations between those portions of us and the purpose or content within these particular programs. Remember, these are programs. Within the program is very distinct frequencies designed for the protocol in which it's named. So from conflict balance all the way to Veda. So there is programs that align with those different modalities, body, mind, and soul. But the frequencies, now that they're very broad and general in terms of that body, mind, soul. We all have a body, we all have a mind, we have a soul. So we've got billions of people with these, genetic or generic qualities. But the uniqueness of each program, as we connect to this body or your body, now there's a very distinct resonance. There's a very distinct interaction between the program and the way you're connected to the Healy and its resonance with your body to pinpoint from an arsenal of hundreds of frequencies within the modality, the content, or the desire of the program. But it picks just a few very specific frequencies that resonate with your body, male, female, old, young, any ethnic background. And the job of that resonant system is to build harmony and to build balance and raise the frequencies or the energy within the cell of your body for that particular goal. And we're gonna go. This just excites the heck out of me. So that's why I kind of a little bit more on the technology so you can kind of see and build value in what's happening in the background.
So if we look at the power of three, and we've talked about that there's the three programs groups, and then there's three programs that are housed within each one of those groups. There is also a recommended protocol that goes along with the power of three. And again, we'll be exploring that in a little bit further on in the presentation. But for me, in moving through these programs, it has been a delightful discovery of how synergetic they are, how they weave in and intertwine and interplay with each other. And again, it's like seeing that on that global expansive view of things, but also on that individual. So I've personally been keeping a journal as I've been moving through working with these different programs. And in that, I've been discovering my own little thread that weaves through everything within me, from the physical to my emotional to my mental, spiritual, all those levels of self, that there's been a new level of discovery about myself in that exploration. So it's not a required thing to have a journal, but if you'd like to deepen that experience and you have the time and you get value from journaling, I would highly encourage you to do it, because it has been very revealing for me in that way. And of course, when we integrate it within ourselves, then we can also see that again in our external environments. So.
Exactly. I think that knowledge is the precursor to experience, right? So we have a certain amount of knowledge about any topic, and then we wander out there in our world and we experience the effects of that knowledge. And the knowledge part is the thought within the brain, and the experience is to the body. So you put those two together and it enriches the overall purpose of what you're experiencing or going through. So as Tina's mentioned before, there is a protocol, a length of time, a schedule in terms of how this system is designed. And primarily it gives any kind of modality should have instruction, right? And so that's for the masses. Now we can also fine tune as we get new understandings, new knowledge, we fine tune some of the instruction so that it fits within maybe our lifestyle, maybe within our schedule a little bit more, because maybe somebody is a very busy single mom, or someone else is a very huge corporate CEO, or someone's a student within school, and Monday, Wednesday, and Friday just doesn't fit, right? So, but the point is that we do it for a certain length of time, as I mentioned before, so that the body gets time for the biology to adjust and change. And this is where this 9-week protocol is going to start to come into fruition. And each module, each section, body, mind, and spirit, each one of these sections gets a full 3 weeks of implementation for the body to find a rhythm with those frequencies, and then of course be able to have a measurable result. And as Tina said, journaling gives a very good understanding, because I don't know how many of you guys, but if I was asked today by a nutritionist, what did I have for breakfast last week? I would have a hard time rehearsing and recalling and all that kind of stuff. So if I didn't write it down. So journaling is a fabulous idea.
And Ken, just to kind of go back to something you were saying about, as individuals, our schedules and things like that, I really think that is part of the beauty of Healy, is that we are learning and discovering that within ourselves, to our own autonomy, and what works for us and what's not, and how we're feeling. And, so to stick to something, if you're having a strong reaction, or you didn't get really hydrated that day, and all of those things, you have to consider yourself in that equation. So I think that's great that you touched on that. So bioenergetic rebalance. So that's the first program grouping that we talked about at the beginning of the presentation here, where it houses conflict balance and defense support and friendly flora. And so for me, again, in looking at this, it's just, where do we get out of balance? Where do we get knocked off course? There's so much going on from the food we eat, right? So our internal biology and physiology, what we're feeding ourselves, and the nutrients, and what our bodies are able to take in, but also what's happening in our lives. Are we in good relationships with people, and in community, and all of those things? So when we get knocked off course in any which way, we have these programs that help us come back to a place of balance and harmony and well-being within ourselves.
Exactly. And the bottom line is that when we are in that sympathetic nervous system, doesn't matter why, doesn't matter if it's justified, doesn't matter if everybody on your block will get on board with your drama. It doesn't matter. None of that matters. When the body's in that sympathetic nervous system, it's out of healing. It has shifted its resources away from healing into that fight or flight response. And so the bioenergetic rebalancing, again, is driven specifically to bring us back. And as you see here, the bioenergetic field can be influenced by things such as just loud sounds, right? Vaccinations or physical assaults. What's physical assaults? I mean, there's things out there. We're driving down the road. Somebody cuts us off. The internal state, the memory of the body moves right into a perception of assault or attack, or that fight or flight mechanism. So often we don't even know to what degree that we're in that response mechanism. We don't even know, unless you've got some sort of a monitoring device measuring your HRV, your biorhythmic content, the information of your body. You don't even know, because sometimes, how many of you guys are good at drama, right? Are good at rehearsal of some effect within your life, are good at recanting something terrible that happened, right? That you should feel justified and partnered with other people in terms of how bad or wrong that was. This becomes kind of some part of our nature. Maybe you know someone out there that complains. I mean, I know none of you guys do that, but I'm just saying that perhaps you know somebody that does. And the moment that we decide that we're going to complain about something, right, we're rehearsing some evidence of disconnect, disorder, or disease. And like I said before, the body doesn't know the difference between something you make up in your mind or an event happening in your three-dimensional space. It just simply goes into action of being out of balance. So right here is where we start that effect of rebalancing.
And to go a step further with that too, Ken, I think there is, what we're aware of in that way or not, if we're doing those types of things in an unconscious, habitual way. But there is also what we've been entrained to within our environments as young kids. Like I know personally, when I started working with a naturopath and being told that my body is wired in a stress response, I couldn't even understand it because I felt fine. I didn't feel stressed. But so it's kind of under the radar. So I think there's an entrainment too that you, through different traumas in your life and different experiences, that the body is now wired to, that you may not even on a conscious level realize, even if you're not doing the drama and all the other stuff, that also is there and lives within us. So
Yep. It's a subconscious programming.
yeah.
100%. Yep.
Okay, so now if we look at the power of three and that bioenergetic rebalancing group of programs that are, connected to that, I just think I think, Ken, this one, it would actually be good to go back and forth from each one, because again, I know I'm going to do more of a Cliff Note version and you'll do a deeper dive, but I looked at even the brilliance of what they're named, because it almost says it all to me when I look at that, like conflict balance, so in all the areas that we feel that there's a tension and a stress and things that are unresolved, from an internal perspective, but also, again, on all these different levels. Like if my belief systems if I have different ideas and beliefs that are incongruent with each other and creating conflict, and then how is that happening in my external environment? How do I interact? And so looking at conflict overall, and all the things that conflict for me is almost like when it gets to that point, the tension is so much that you can't help but pay attention to it on some level. And so when I look at conflict balance, it was like, oh, to have something to bridge that gap, to bring me back into bioenergetic harmony within my field. Yeah, because all those stressors that again get trapped in the body. If you hold tension in your body, if you're someone that isn't able to communicate, like when things get heated, or you avoid conflict, and then where does that get held in the body and in your emotional system and in your, the space and energy it takes up. So Ken, what would you say about it?
Yeah. So remember, as I like to use the body as the rudder, the rudder is the part of a ship or a boat that's underwater, unseen, but yet has a huge influence on the direction of the bow or the front. It literally steers the ship. And so I use the body as my steering mechanism. And understand that to the tune of 800,000 cells per second. Now write this down because there's a quiz at the end. 800,000 cells per second are being recreated inside of you. There's a natural order and intelligence that's doing that. I mean, if I was to say, okay, guys, stop the cell division within your body, you can't do that. And you don't want to do that. And each one of those cells, I mean, it could be a skin cell. Of that 800,000, there's a wide variety of types: skin cells, bone cells, muscle cells, digestive cells, brain cells, all the parts of your body that are being recreated in 1 second. And each one of them have a different lifespan, right? So skin is all the time, every day, right? The bone is years. It's within 7 years, all the bone cells have switched over. Muscle cells about every 200 days they turn over. Brain cells about every year. Blood cells every 90 days. Inner lining of the digestive system every week. So of that 800,000, there's variety. And only 3% of that cell code, the genetic code, says it's going to be a skin cell or brain cell or digestive system cell. The other 97% is an antenna reading its environment, wanting to know to what quality, to what kind, to what degree I should be that cell. And the information that's reading is your energy, right? Your thoughts, the energy within your environment, and the Healy input energy. Okay, so those cells are being created all the time. And if we are in a state of chaos and we're creating cells in a state of chaos, the cell receptor sites on that grouping of cells are more apt to be comfortable within the agitation or the frequency of chaos. So you don't even know, it just feels like you.
Mhm.
It just feels normal, right? And so you don't know until if you were able to change the frequency of everything within your body in one instant. Oh my gosh, that would be a huge contrast to what you're used to. And again, there's meditative practices, there's things of getting ourselves out of the state of us, and we come back and we go, oh my gosh, I feel so much better. And Healy works within that realm of energy to influence that expression and then help down regulate some of those cell receptor sites that are so used to looking for stress or chaos. I mean, think about it. If you change your schedule, every day you drive to work at 8 a.m., every day you drive home from work at 5 p.m. And what happens when you have a vacation, extra day off? The first couple of days are in disorder. You're like, oh my gosh, it's 8 o'clock. I'm usually stressed out about traffic right now. What's going on? Why am I so agitated? Oh, I must need my coffee or something, right? It's because the body's so entranced with that routine. The cell receptor sites are looking for the fix. So here's where we're working on the balance of that. All of that is conflict. And here's where we're working on the balance.
Hey, Ken, I think this would be a nice place to maybe have you elaborate and explain what bioenergetic, when we're talking about the bioenergetics and the bioenergetic field, because we see that over and over again as we're moving through the programs and we read, what that's harmonizing and rebalancing and what it's doing, and we see the bioenergetic field. Do you want to touch on what we're referring to when we talk about that?
Sure. We have various fields of us, right? The emotional, spiritual, bioenergetic, and electric. Okay. So there is an electrical field of your body. When you create a thought to wiggle your finger, there is electrical signals that go through the nervous system that activate and energize the muscles and move in rehearsed ways. If I would say contract think it in my mind, I can do it in my finger. I say extend. I think it in my mind and my brain, I do it. You don't actually have to think about it because you're so used to doing it. But the point is there's still a command. That's an electrical impulse that goes through the nervous system. That's the electric body. Okay. Every time you have an electrical signal from any point of origin or source to its destination. So say a lamp where you plug in a cord into the wall, you have a light bulb on the other end. You plug in the cord, there's a switch in between, you turn on, the light bulb lights up. There's electron flow from the source to the load. Okay. And with every time you have electron flow, you have a magnetic energy emitting off of that. Same with our nervous system. You have a thought in your brain to move the finger. There's electrical pulses through the nervous system, but associated with it is a magnetic field. That's the bioenergetic field, right? Emits off of every electrical pulse within you, including a thought. The moment you have a thought, whether it's irrelevant if it's telling your finger to wiggle or how worthless you are. I'm just saying those are still bioenergetic influences having a magnetic emission. And so when we're working with the bioenergetic field, we're working with those magnetic fields of the body and influencing them through microcurrent, through actual current, because again, we're sending current through the body, through the electrodes, through the connecting points of the Healy, whether it be, some of you guys are familiar with the coil. That's a magnetic interface with those bioenergetic fields. It's a direct interface. And so we can create coherent signals, ones that are in alignment and wave at the same frequency, or incoherent signals, ones that are opposite and opposing and nullify, right? So we can adjust energies within the bioenergetic field. And hopefully that makes sense. The bioenergetic field is literally a magnetic energy field. When you have a thought, it goes out into the universe. This is a magnetic signature. coming out from the brain, right? And the heart honestly has a big part to that. But have you ever walked into a room and just felt creepy? You know, or you met somebody and just felt in love with them right out of the chute, right? That's your ability to receive bioenergetic interface with another human. Okay.
So would you say it's like taking energy and then transforming and utilizing that energy?
Exactly. We're interacting with that bioenergetic field, and we're either being coherent to elongate or express or amplify the energy of that. So in other words, if we want to say just muscle, we're looking at well, let's just go to conflict balance. Let's say conflict is not something we want to propagate. So we can create incoherent signals to downregulate conflict and create coherent signals to upregulate balance. Okay.
Mm-hmm.
So now we're working directly within the bioenergetic field to essentially short circuit interface with conflict and amplify interface with balance. We don't need to know exactly how that works. We just feel it. And that's the beauty of this.
Great. Thanks, Ken. So now if we take defense support itself, again, you know, for me, it's the ways in which defense, I don't know, when I first read it, defense felt like, okay, I'm going to be in the offense of something, fighting against something. But it also is like when I took it internally, like looking at my immune system and my immune system turning on to defend against viruses and bacteria, right? To keep that out. And then as I looked at it from the support part of that, how are we supporting those internal processes? And even in, again, taking it to my outer world of, do I have healthy boundaries? Or do I need to defend those boundaries? And in that, do I go across the line further where I'm fighting for that, for my for my boundary to be held? You know, where does that line get blurred between it being a support and where does it get out of balance in the fighting against? So that's kind of what I was exploring as I was looking at this program.
It's perfect alignment. Like I mentioned, if we look at things, maybe I've got the engineering brain. So if we look at things in more of a technical respect, things that either build up a signal or diminish a signal meaning any kind of influence. Do we have supportive thoughts? Do we have diminishing thoughts? Thoughts are a great one because those are those internal things that we feel like we can't deal with or anything. And so then if we want to build a defense system against non-serving thoughts, then there's harmony within the frequencies going into the body. We're not only just speaking to say the cell structures that are muscle, but a lot of this is working with the mind, the brain. The brain gets very distinct patterns of thought. And when these neurological systems wire together, they become efficient. And so it's easy to think in a certain pattern. And so we need to, I guess, defend against that pattern, right? We need to build new pathways. And this is, again, part of the modalities here where we're working with the power of three, because it does not negate the way the brain is wired in you or me, because it knows, I mean, the system knows that we have gone through a lifetime of experiences. And, you know, how many of those experiences, I know none of you have had any that are bad, but they tend to be bad, right? They could be. So yeah, we work with those as well. Okay.
And then if we look at Friendly Flora, I love the name Friendly Flora. It made me feel good. But yeah, with this one too, there's an environment, you know, within our gut, our microbiome and all the microorganisms within it, that when we are supporting that environment in a healthy way, there is collaboration and there is contribution flow that's happening between us and everything that's within us. And when we're not, we experience that, where we have intestinal issues and or digestive issues. And so kind of looking at it from that place too of again, everything that it's like we house a whole universe inside ourselves, but then we are that in the universe. So I always think of those Russian dolls, where there's the one and then inside is another one and another one. It gets all the way down to this tiny little doll. It's like that for me when I'm thinking of like what's in my body and then how that vibrates out. And so even in my environment with people, um, is there that cohesiveness where I have the energy to support and am I willing to receive that back, that contribution back in that symbiotic way.
Mhm. Exactly. And that, remember, the friendly flora is a huge network of microorganisms that are not human. They're within us, but they're not the human part of us. Yet they still have a very huge purpose. There's more synaptic connections in the flora than there is in our brain. So think about that. Huge influence, and it's got that whole gut health that has a huge influence on our emotional state. So it's very, very important that we maintain a balance there and a friendly flora.
Yeah, and there's like that dance between the microbiome and the mitochondria, and then how that contributes to the ATP and the energy we feel in our bodies. It's really fascinating when you start really taking a deeper dive into all these things and to realize that we're less human than we are if they look at our biology, and the percentages of that. It's not overwhelmingly that we are more human than anything else. So it's fascinating. Okay, so now if we look at universal frequencies, um, again, this is that next program group within the Power of Three, and this one houses classical, physical, classical energetic, and the Zapper protocol. And I love how Healy has built upon the knowledge and the experience of these pioneers that came before, with Dr. Reif and Dr. Clark with the Zapper protocol, and how they've brought that into Healy and they've added to it, from where we are today, from where that was created before. So I found these very exciting. When I got to the Zapper protocol, it was a little bit disturbing to see what that all entails, but we'll save that for a minute. But yeah, with Dr. Reif, I think I was really surprised to see the amount of things that he was responsible for, including the microscope that viewed the live virus for the first time. I was like, wow. But he really was of the mind that when a cell is born, there is an optimal frequency. It has its own sound song, its own vibration. And when our cells do get, when we go through the trauma and all these things that deplete and cause die-off within the body and cause our cells to diminish, he was really looking at how can we contribute and add sound frequency to bring them back into a state of vitality. And then the Zapper protocol, looking at how to kill off the parasites that are, taking the nutrition and the vitality and everything from us, and everything they house within them, the bacteria and the viruses. And so, yeah, doing like a cleanse to clear those things out of our system. So it was really fascinating to explore this subset of frequency programs.
And that so with the Rife frequencies, you've got the physical, working with the physical, and frequencies are the frequencies are abundant. There's an infinite number of frequencies. It's just that the discovery by these scientists and these pioneers found out how to use specific groupings to interface with the body or with a purpose, and they just got more and more efficient. And over time, you just kind of refine this grouping of frequencies. And so Rife decided or found that these are the ones that are working within the physical. These are the ones that are working within energetic. And all of this discovery should be encompassed. We should embrace all of the different discoveries out there and then be able to bring them into one place. And the cool thing about what Healy can do, it's not limited in terms of what frequencies it can generate. The noise generator, the device, also known as the quantum sensor, can interface or generate any frequency. So this is nice to be able to build new programs that will then be utilizing the quantum sensor and just use the technology and the skill set from these amazing scientists. And the Zapper program, again, it was named properly, very specific, very specific in terms of, zapping a parasite, zapping a fungus, and when you say zap, well, what's that going to do? That's literally, let's just get rid of it. So that's its point. Its purpose is to be, if we look at, like I said earlier, coherent energy raises the energy of whatever it's coherent with. Incoherent energy diminishes the energy of whatever it's incoherent with. So if we want to zap a parasite, we simply become opposite of its energy field and poof, it is destroyed. So so that's its point, its purpose, its design.
Yeah, and it's an interesting protocol because the first 7 minutes you are zapping, you're eliminating the parasite's outer membrane. So this is where it got a little like, oh, for me, gag. And then 20 minutes of pause and rest. And I feel like Healy's probably revamped this with adding in, of course, their frequencies and what we know today. And then there's another 7-minute cycle. And in that 7-minute cycle, it's destroying harmful pathogens that were released in the first cycle. Again, ew. And then a 20-minute pause. And then there's the third 7-minute cycle that then is removing any other possible pathogens and virus and bacteria that was released. Because as these parasites are feeding, they're also multiplying. So the die-off, you can experience lots of different symptoms in that. You might feel headachy, nauseous. So it's just important to stay hydrated and know if you're going through a particular cleanse with that, to make sure you're resting adequately through that process.
Yeah, there's kind of a cleaning house effect anytime that you have mobilized some kind of non-serving content, toxin, virus, entity, whatever it is. Once you've mobilized it, you need to then recontain it and eliminate it. So the way that our body eliminates things is through the kidney, right? That's its job. And so hydration is critical. And we know that a proper hydrated body is one who's consuming half their body weight in ounces of water, right? Half your body weight. So if you're 100 pounds, that's 50 ounces a day. How many of you guys are diligent about that? Because I want to also give you another equation that just a 3% dehydrated body loses up to 10% of its muscular intraskeletal strength, 10%, and up to 8% of the contractile speed of that muscle. So no wonder you feel tired, right? What if you had 10% more visual acuity? And what if you had 10% more strength? And what if you had 10% more capability to love? I mean, think about that. Just by hydrating, you're actually supporting the body in those modalities.
Yeah, absolutely. And if you're working out and you're sweating a lot in a hot environment, then you need to increase it from there, right? To make up for that loss as well. Yeah.
Yeah.
Okay, so now we have digital Ayurveda. So this is the third program grouping within the power of three. And this is based on the tridoshas, which is it's an ancient study. It goes back thousands of years. I've seen conflicting timeframes from 3,000 all the way going back 6,000 years, where out of India is where it comes from, where it was um, looked at by monks. So they would sit and really go through these different levels of self, like we've been talking about, mind, body, spirit. So it's been said that it's the oldest holistic practice. So I found that really fascinating to look at that. But they're looking at when you were born, that there is a constitution, there is a makeup of you that fits into one of these tridoshas. And you can be a variety of them, but there's typically one that's more you than the others. So there's different quizzes and things you can take. But if you want to do a deep dive, it'd be a good idea to work with a practitioner. But it's fascinating when you look at these tridoshas, which are Kapha, Pitta, and Vata, and the different makeups that come along with them. Like it's interesting because some people you can almost tell who they are just by reading through some of it. So, Ken, do you want to add on to that?
Yeah, we're interfacing with the elements of the earth. I mean, we are of this planet, we are of this universe, and we are of stardust. And so there's a very distinct pattern within the human body, and we operate within a circadian rhythm of this planet, the rising and the setting of the sun, and so there are very distinct patterns. And as Tina said, we are typically a combination of all three, but there tends to be dominance in some, and that shows up in our body. It shows up in the way that our body experiences temperature, experiences composition, experiences energy, and they fall within these. And as you see in the center, there is a connection of all three. So there is this unity. I think that the goal is balance, right? If we're out of balance, then we can understand some of the aspects of the other dosha,
Mhm.
and through awareness, through consciousness, through energy expression, we can start to bring some of that in. So yeah, this is balance here.
So we've touched on this a little bit, that this is a study that originated out of India, and Ayurveda itself, the translation, I've seen a couple of different translations actually, but here we see the knowledge of life. I've also heard it being called the mother of all healing. I think that's what it's typically called, but not the literal translation of it, or the science of life. So it's really how mind, body, spirit, and our environment, how it all works together. And I love what Ken was just saying, because, when we look at that constitution of ourselves, when we look at that on all these different levels, then we can begin to see the things that we can maybe add in to create more balance in our lives. And maybe there are things we need to take out to create more balance in our lives. But it really starts with an internal purification process, which, like everything we've been talking about, right, through the whole power of three, this internal process of cleaning house and creating space and a healthy environment to thrive, but then also externally what the things are that we can be doing. So there's diet recommendations, and there's yoga and meditations and all different things to support. And again, the goal to bring everything back into a place of harmony and balance.
Mm-hmm. And there's not just one answer, not just one fits all kind of modality. We need to, and every one of us here on this call, and everyone that will listen to this recording, will know that their understanding, their way, their perception is within their comfort zone. It's within their wheelhouse, within their realm of understanding.
Mhm.
And it's not until perhaps we add another modality, add another understanding, that we get to the next level. And there's an evolution that's necessary. And Hippocrates said a long time ago that there were three states of energy. there was increasing, decreasing, and stable. And his apprentice Plato said, I don't find those three. I can find increase, I can find decrease, but the stabilization of energy is such a fleeting point, such a small, minute space that I can't see it long enough to measure it. And so that's the truth. And the truth is that out of that understanding, Plato discovered that there's either an increase or decrease, or a growing or dying of energy. And if we're not in a growth pattern, then we've got to be in a depleting pattern. So this gives us an opportunity here to use various modalities to build a growth pattern, right? So that's how we use the different understandings here, where we're talking about the practices, keeping the growth pattern.
So if we look at the different doshas themselves, this is just a very simple snapshot of what that could look like and how it's expressed and what that might look like physically and all of those things. But, like everything, it's not just black and white and that's just the way it is. There's an interweaving that happens. So there might be parts of it that resonate, parts of it that don't. And like we touched on, that you're not just like 100% one dosha. You have percentages of each one. And so when you're looking at it, there is sort of that simple, like you can lock in and say, oh, I'm this or I'm that, but to just be open to the different aspects within each one. I found that fascinating too, to see as I was looking at it more in depthly. I did a quiz online that I have posted. I think it's on Chopra's website, but it has a deeper dive into how these things are expressed. And that was really fascinating. So if you want to research it, you can. There's so much out there for sure. But it was interesting to see the pieces and which pieces are definitely not, and which pieces I could add in, and which pieces like totally resonated. So here we
remember some of these things are so they're built-in mechanisms that we are natural tendencies to, but also they could be behavioral. And so if we were to change our behavior patterns, then we can start having influences over the imbalances and becoming within balance. So behaviors, one who tends to resonate in a more unhappy way, right? If you were to consciously change that, and then you could start to change it from being more kapha to maybe another modality. So just think about how we can be interactive. That's the point, the goal here, being interactive and being creating alignment, so that now all of a sudden we change the thickness of our hair, the smoothness of our skin, the patience, the steadiness, the supportive. We literally are changing that stuff by what? By behavior patterns, by belief structures, and the body will follow suit, right?
Yeah, and that was the fun play of it, is to really look at the things that I can change, right? I might not be able to change my height or bone structure in this 10 seconds, but I can look at, can I do breathing exercises? Can I look at, if I'm stubborn, being more open, things like that. So here is Pitta. So a little snapshot of what that could look like. And it's all based on the 5 elements. So there's fire, water, earth, air, and space. And even in looking at how those elements interact together gave me a lot of insight.
Again, like I mentioned before, we're looking at the fact that we are on this planet. We're a interactive force with Mother Earth. And so the elements should not be discounted and should be utilized and interacted with. And some people don't live perhaps on a beach or near water, but that could be that their body's more in tuned with the earth, right? So I think it's important that I live in a climate where I have all 4 seasons. And so my body gets the experience of diversity in that regard. And then of course, spending time in nature, spending time within the elements. How many people would go out and sit in meditation during a rainstorm? You know, not a lot of people might do that because they're a fair weather type of individual. But the moment you do that, you push yourself beyond the comfort zone, beyond the barriers and the limits and beliefs of who you are, then you start balancing these. So this is where it takes diligence, it takes desire. I'm not saying that, you know, that you can't thrive in one's own space of one particular dosha. But if there's suffering, if there's disorder, if there's disharmony, then it's necessary to do something differently. You can't do the same thing over and over again, expecting the same result, right? That's just not going to work.
You know, with this one, I had a funny thought because I was thinking of water and how that can cool fire. All right, then we have Vata. So again, a snapshot of what that could look like. So,
and the ether is space. Ether is also within air is ether, right? There, everything, there's a modality of everything, and that's the ether. That is the modality of all things, including air. So yeah, fabulous.
Okay, and so then you can see here, like we've seen with the other ones, how it gives us a duration time for how long the programs run. But basically with each one of these, it's looking at what is out of balance and bringing it back into harmony and back into bioenergetic balance again with each of the different doshas.
Beautiful. Look at that. I mean, it's such an alignment tool. I mean, I love this picture right here. You see this flowing body, this person that's able to, you know, move within their own space. I just, the balancing of imbalances, as simple as that sounds, becomes the healing agent for this body.
Yeah, because there's the flexibility, there's the presence, there's the stability, like it's all built in. In fact, this next graphic too, I'm like, I want to be able to do that. And that's my end game. So when we look at it in a full snapshot, it is about bringing balance in the different areas, and how can you do that? Where do you need that? And what would be a contribution to you within it?
And so that's why this section here, the Ayurvedic section, is the last section that we would finish off with in terms of the power of three. It's that rebalancing after we've done the construction work. You know, when you build a house, there's a chaos and disorder of the site, right? And then as you start to get form, shape, and definition to this structure, this house, you clean away all the debris, and you get rid of all the excess, and what's left is this this beautiful harmonic structure. So that's the body. We're building a body all the time, every second, to the tune of, remember I said there was going to be a quiz, 800,000 cells per second. So we need to do that consciously, diligently, and efficiently.
Absolutely. And then that leads us to now looking at what this overall protocol recommendation is. So if we look at each one of those groupings that we've gone through this evening, we're going to take that first subset of programs, the bioenergetic rebalancing, and do that cycle for 3 weeks. So you're going to start, let's just use the Monday, Wednesday, Friday, since that's simple right now to do. So we'll look at Monday, you would be running conflict balance. Wednesday, you would run defense support. Friday, you would run friendly flora. And then you're going to repeat it again, week 2, Monday, conflict balance. Wednesday, defense support. Friday, friendly flora. Week 3, repeat it again. And then after you've done that category 3 times, that grouping, then you're going to move to the next one, the universal frequencies. And same thing, Monday you would run classical physical, Wednesday you're going to run classical energetic, and Friday you're going to run the Zapper protocol. Week 5, do that regimen again. Week 6, you do it again. Then you would have finished that subset of programs, and then you're going to move on to digital Ayurveda, and that's when you're going to work with this subset of programs. So that is the protocol.
And you notice that there's, so day 1, 2, and 3, day 1, 2, and 3, day 1, 2, and 3. So again, Monday, Wednesday, and Friday is a good day 1, 2, and 3, right? Let's say that that doesn't work for you. You know, I hear a lot of times folks go, well, there's just no way I can do it Monday, Wednesday, and Friday. Okay. You know, don't let that be what stops you. Find it to be, you know, Tuesday, Thursday, Saturday. Find it to be a regular regimen, but give a day a break in between so that you can ground, reset, and rebuild. We need to give the body that time. You know, I wouldn't recommend doing it on Monday, Tuesday, Wednesday. Anytime that we do something, just let's go to workout. If you're going to work out in the gym, you know, do you work biceps Monday, Tuesday, Wednesday, Thursday, Friday? No, you don't, because the body needs a certain amount of time to recover. And so this is the same thing here, 800,000 cells per second. And there needs to be a time in which the body is able to recover. And to enhance that recovery process, we need a self-care program, a protocol that incorporates some very necessary components, right? And let's talk about that for a second. In terms of self-care, we talked about hydration. Critical, right? Very important, because that's what the cells are actually comprised of. They need that cell, that water, that the intracellular moisture water to be vital and supple. But breath is another one. We need to have a very good breathing routine. Most of us breathe very, very shallow and within the chest. Our lungs go from the collarbone to the lower rib. That's a big section. There's 2 of them. They're huge. And we need to practice filling them completely and emptying them completely. So find a breath protocol that you enjoy, that you can engage in every day. Secondly, grounding, or thirdly, I should say grounding. Grounding is a very critical part in which we are able to use the earth as an amazing antioxidant. And this is touching the earth with our skin, with our body, right? Allowing it to be interactive. And if we can't get outside, it's wintertime, it's whatever it is, there are devices, there are systems that which plug in to the grounding circuits of our home and give us something like that. There's also a meditative practice that you can actually close your eyes, disconnect from the world, hear music, and extend the roots from your feet into the earth, and really balance through that that mind connection with the earth. Movement is another one. Any kind of movement where we're engaging the lymphatic system, yoga, stretching, dance, long, elongated movements of the body to engage those that system. And then my favorite, this is one that I add to every one of the self-care protocols at the last, is to fall in love with life. Right? Literally, just find a reason, a purpose, something in your heart that drives you every day to wake up and move on to the next moment.
And I would add to fall in love with life and allow life to love you back. Receive. So thank you for joining us this evening and taking the time to explore and learn more about the Power of 3. I'm wishing you all an amazing journey of discovery within these programs, and I'm looking forward to that interaction and that's that community where we're sharing and collaborating and learning from each other. So thank you for your time this evening.
Thank you, Tina. Thank you guys for joining us. It's been a pleasure to serve you, and I am so grateful that we have this opportunity, this product, and this particular protocol, and we can practice this. I'm ready to jump in, and let's give it another 9 weeks of alignment. So love you guys. Thank you very much.
Woo-hoo.
Love it. Thank you, Ken. Thank you.
Thank you, Tina. Thank you, Ken.
Thank you, guys.
Thank you.
Thank
Thank
you.
you.
Wonderful.